And so Microsoft Graph is an API that you can use to connect to a variety of Office 365 services. So it's a single endpoint that gets you access and functionality into tools such as Exchange, OneDrive, or Teams. Now the nice thing about Graph is that it is a single endpoint, whereas previously a lot of these services had their own API and endpoint. And so Microsoft Graph is kind of a consolidation of all of these Office 365 services into a single endpoint. Now, one particular case that we've found useful at Pragmatic Works is using Graph to connect to Azure Active Directory. And so this is handy if I want to do things like find for a person the groups that a person is a member of, or if I have the name of a group, who are the members that are in that group. And we found this particularly useful in some cases where we're using Power Apps, and we want to, based on the login of the person using the Power App, see what groups they're a part of, and then maybe apply security on the app and show or hide certain functionality within the app based on group membership in Azure Active Directory. And so that's one way that we've found Microsoft Graph very useful. Now, talking about Active Directory, I want to share this note with you from Microsoft. You may have come across this, the Azure AD Graph API. So there's a little bit of, confusion, quite frankly, but this is a note from Microsoft saying that to connect to AD, you really should be using Microsoft Graph now and not the Azure AD Graph API. So those sound pretty similar. But again, kind of to that note about how it's one API, one endpoint through all these services. It's just simply Microsoft Graph, and then within there we can connect to Azure Active Directory. So I wanted to share that note with you. Now, one really handy tool that's available with Microsoft Graph is called the Graph Explorer. And this is kind of you can kind of think of it similar to how you would use Postman or SOAP UI for testing API calls. And I've shown a screenshot of it here. You could do a search for this online, search for the Microsoft Graph Explorer, and it'll bring you to this page. It's just a web interface, and it's really nice because you can kind of get an idea of what the Microsoft Graph can do. It's got a number of samples in here based on the different services that it connects to, so it's a really great way for you to explore and understand more about what Graph can do. I used it here just for a quick sample showing how I can use Graph to get my Office 365 profile information. And so I just put that URL in there. And this was all generated by the tool, by the way, so I didn't have to write any of this. So I'm using the get method and then executing the query, and then it just returns a preview of what the response would look like. So you can kind of get an idea of how you might use Microsoft Graph in your application and the format and the type of data that you're going to get back if you do execute it and then incorporate this into your application. I hope you found this quick introduction to Microsoft Graph useful. If you have any questions about this or any other Azure topics, please reach out, let us know. Thank you.